It started with a receipt. Not a text, not a lipstick-smudged shirt collar, not some stranger's voicemail left by mistake. Just a small, unassuming slip of paper folded neatly and tucked into the side pocket of Marianne's tote bag, which she'd left by the door like she always did. It was early Friday morning and I was already running late for work. My keys had somehow vanished again, and in my rush to find them, I opened her bag, thinking maybe I'd tossed them there without realizing. That's when I saw it, the receipt. I didn't recognize the logo at first, just some gold foil lettering spelling out August Lane. But I recognized the total. $128.46. 2 entrees, 2 cocktails, a bottle of wine, and dessert. Not the kind of bill you rack up while sipping water and typing notes at a solo business meeting. This was dinner. A full evening. Shared. That detail stuck with me like a burr in my sock. August Lane was on the far side of town, way out by the boutique hotels and art galleries, the kind of place you don't just wander into alone unless you're looking to be noticed. And that night, just a few evenings earlier, Marianne had said she was attending a lecture at the downtown public library. Something about preserving historic neighborhoods she'd mentioned already halfway through brushing her hair. I remember because she wore that navy wrap dress, the one she usually saved for weddings or interviews, and spritzed on perfume right before she left. Not her usual floral stuff either. Something bolder. Musky. Exotic. At the time, I didn't question it. Why would I? She was always meticulous with her calendar, always had a purpose to her plans. I trusted her. Later that night, she texted me a photo of the library entrance, cropped close, probably so I wouldn't see who was with her. I responded with a thumbs up, no questions asked. She came home around 10, said it ran long, apologized for skipping dinner, and fell asleep before I could even offer to heat up leftovers. Now, standing in the living room with that receipt in my hand, something didn't add up. Not just the cost, not just the location. The whole thing. The vibe. The way she'd rushed out that night without her usual "remind me to tell you how it goes," like the evening wasn't meant to be remembered. I didn't confront her right away. I told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe Clara had picked the spot. Maybe they were celebrating an early win on their project. Maybe. But later that evening, I casually mentioned it. We were folding laundry, a domestic ritual that used to make us feel like a team. She was humming along to a podcast when I said, "Hey, weird thing, I found a receipt in your bag." August Lane? When did you go there? She didn't freeze. Didn't stutter. Just smiled and tossed a pair of socks into the drawer. "Oh, that," she said breezily, like I'd found a stray Target receipt. "That was Tuesday night, right? After the library thing." Clara and I grabbed a bite afterward. The lecture ended early. She didn't look up when she said it. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Not because I caught her in a lie, because I wasn't even sure it was a lie yet. It was the ease of her answer. The way it rolled off her tongue like she'd rehearsed it. I nodded slowly, letting the silence hang for a moment longer than usual. "Clara doesn't drink, right?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Marianne paused. Just long enough. Then she laughed, not quite naturally. "God, no," she stuck to soda. I had a glass of wine. The receipt probably included mine, plus the bottle we shared for the presentation toast. You know how restaurants pad the bill? A perfectly crafted explanation. And yet, Clara had once told me she was allergic to red wine. Even the smell gave her migraines. I remembered because Marianne had teased her about being the cheapest date in town at our last dinner party. Still, I let it drop. Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe a more suspicious man would have pressed harder. But I didn't want to believe there was something to press into. That receipt could have been anything. People meet for business in weird places all the time. Right? Except Marianne wasn't just any colleague. She was methodical. Predictable. She hated surprises, avoided late-night drives, and rarely veered from her routines. The library was a straight sh*T downtown. August Lane was 30 minutes in the opposite direction. She would have had to take a detour, go out of her way, and not mention it. That wasn't like her. The rest of that night played out normally as if nothing had happened. She curled up with her book while I absent-mindedly scrolled through shows we'd already watched. Her laugh came easily when I made a bad joke. Her kiss goodnight was soft, familiar. But something inside me had already started unraveling. I wish I could say I let it go, that I chalked it up to coincidence and moved on. But I couldn't. Because even though I said nothing, my mind didn't stop replaying that moment, the flash of hesitation, the too easy justification, the ghost of red wine lingering in her story where it didn't belong. And I hadn't even told her I saw the dessert. We don't do dessert. Not at restaurants. Not unless we're celebrating something. Not unless it's shared. That night, I lay awake long after she fell asleep beside me, listening to her steady breathing and wondering if the version of her I'd believed in was still the one lying next to me. The receipt sat on my nightstand, folded neatly like a secret it didn't want to tell. And even though I hadn't said it out loud, I already knew. Something wasn't right. After that night, something changed in me. I didn't say anything to Marianne, didn't accuse, didn't pry. Outwardly, everything was the same. We still had our routines, coffee in the morning, a kiss before work, small talk over dinner. But inside? Inside, I was unraveling. The seed had been planted and it was sprouting fast, twisting itself around every memory, every interaction, every tiny inconsistency I'd brushed off before. The next morning, as I stood in the kitchen waiting for the kettle to boil, I watched her move around like nothing had happened. She looked good, better than usual, actually. Her hair was styled differently, looser around her face. Her nails were freshly done, a deeper red than I'd seen before. She used to go months without bothering with polish, said it was too much maintenance. Now it was as if she were preparing for an audience. I asked her if she had a meeting that day. She shook her head, said she just felt like dressing up. For me, she added with a wink. But the way she said it felt practiced, like she was trying to get ahead of a question I hadn't asked yet. That afternoon, I caught myself staring at her phone on the kitchen counter. Locked. Face down. Not unusual in itself, everyone guards their phones these days, but something about it gnawed at me. It used to be different. We'd leave our phones lying around. We shared passcodes. We'd play music on each other's Spotify or order takeout from each other's apps. No hesitation, no secrets. But lately she kept hers close. Too close. Bathroom trips, grocery runs, even while cooking, always within reach, always with the screen turned away. Notifications stopped popping up. Her phone was constantly on silent, or worse, airplane mode. I asked her about it once, jokingly. She said she was trying to unplug more. That the constant buzzing was stressing her out. Maybe it was true. Or maybe it was something else. Around that same time, she started staying late at work more often. I knew her schedule well. She'd been with the same nonprofit for 5 years, and while deadlines came and went, late nights weren't common. Suddenly, she had them weekly. When I asked who she was staying with, she gave vague answers, just the team, or you don't know them. She stopped mentioning names altogether, like her coworkers had become some interchangeable blur. No more stories about Clara or Josh or Nicole. Just people. One night, I woke up around 2:30 in the morning to an empty bed. I figured she was in the bathroom or maybe grabbing water. But the house was silent. I got up, checked the kitchen. Empty. No light. I called out her name. Nothing. I was just about to grab my phone when I heard the soft click of the front door unlocking. She slipped inside, shoes in hand, eyes wide when she saw me standing in the hallway. You scared me, she whispered. I thought you were asleep. She gave a weak laugh. I couldn't sleep. I went for a walk. A walk? At 2:30 in the morning. I needed air. I felt anxious. It didn't make sense. She hated the dark, wouldn't even take the trash out at night without turning on every porch light. But she walked the neighborhood alone in the dead of night? I didn't press her. I should have. But I nodded, muttered something about being glad she was okay, and let it go. Or at least, I pretended to. That same week, I noticed something else. A new perfume. Stronger. More sensual than the floral one she used to wear. It clung to the air when she passed by, lingered in our sheets after she left for work. I asked about it once, said it was different. She smiled and said she got a sample in the mail. Just trying something new, she shrugged. She was trying a lot of new things lately. Dresses started appearing in her closet, sleek, fitted, low-cut. Not her style. At least, not the Marianne I thought I knew. She used to prefer cardigans, flats, comfort over flash. Now it was heels, bold earrings, lipstick that didn't wipe off with one napkin swipe. When I complimented her, she said she was reinventing herself. That she wanted to feel confident again. I told her she looked beautiful. And she did. But my words didn't seem to land. It was like I wasn't the audience she was trying to impress anymore. One evening, she came home later than usual, claimed her late meeting ran over again. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone, but really, I was listening for anything, any giveaway in her voice, any tremor in her story. Instead, she greeted me with a bright smile, handed me a small pastry bag, and said, I brought you a treat. A lemon tart. My favorite. From a bakery on the other side of town. Did they open a second location? I asked, feigning casual interest. She blinked. No, I just passed by after work. But that's 30 minutes from your office. She paused, then smiled. I took a different route home. It was airtight. Too airtight. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the pastry untouched in the fridge. I couldn't explain it, but I felt like I was in a play where everyone had the script but me. And the more I thought about it, the more things came flooding back, little moments that had seemed innocent at the time but now read like coded messages I'd been too blind to interpret. There was the night 2 months ago when she'd said she was working late, but her Instagram story showed a wine glass on a candlelit table captioned with a cryptic, much-needed night out. She deleted it before I could ask. I let it slide then, assuming she just needed space. Then there was her sudden obsession with wellness. Meditation, journaling, a vision board she hung on the inside of her closet door. It featured beaches, smiling couples, and a single phrase clipped from a magazine, "Live your truth." I used to admire how grounded she was. Now I wasn't sure if that grounding had shifted towards something or someone else. Still, I said nothing. I kept collecting these moments like puzzle pieces, hoping they wouldn't fit. Hoping that when I finally put them together, they'd form something harmless, something explainable. But deep down, I already knew what the picture was shaping up to be. And I didn't like what I saw. I didn't want to be the guy who snoops through his wife's phone. I had always believed that if you needed to spy, the relationship was already broken. But ideals have a way of crumbling when reality gnaws at your gut every day like a quiet infection. The doubts had taken root, grown branches, and now they were strangling everything. I couldn't ignore them anymore. So I did it. Quietly. Carefully. One evening, Marianne had left her laptop open on the kitchen table, the screen still glowing from her last session. She was upstairs in the shower. My heart thudded as I sat down, hands trembling slightly as I slid the mouse to wake the screen. The browser was still open. Email. Nothing unusual, work threads, newsletters, the usual subscriptions. But when I opened her cloud photo sync, my breath caught. She didn't know I had linked her phone's camera roll to my old tablet months ago. It was something we did for our trip to Maine so we could both access pictures to print later. She'd never unlinked it. Probably forgot. I hadn't used that tablet in months, but that night I pulled it from the drawer in my office and charged it up. What I found crushed me. The photo was recent, taken less than an hour before. Marianne was at a wine bar, clearly August Lane. I recognized the hanging lights in the background, the velvet-lined booths. She was seated next to a man I'd never seen before. Tall, clean-shaven, wearing a tailored jacket and a watch that gleamed under the moody bar light. She was smiling, not politely, not casually, but the kind of smile I hadn't seen on her in months. The kind that lives in the space between familiarity and desire. Her hand was wrapped around his. His other hand was resting on her thigh. That photo destroyed whatever denial I had left. She had kissed me goodbye 2 hours before. Told me she was heading to a late team meeting at Clara's apartment to work on a board strategy presentation. I remember the way she ran her hand along my jaw as she said it. The softness in her voice. It was rehearsed. Warm. Perfectly believable. And then this. I sat there for what felt like hours staring at that image. Not just at her, but at who she was with. At who she was when she wasn't with me. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel anger, just a deep, low ache like the kind you get when you realize something beautiful has already died and you were the last to know. I stood up, walked quietly to the living room, and opened the bookcase. One by one, I pulled her books from the shelves, the dog-eared novels she reread every winter, the travel guides we used to plan our getaways, the memoirs she said changed her. I packed them carefully into a box. I didn't slam anything. I didn't break things. I wasn't trying to make a statement. I was simply beginning the process of letting go. Upstairs, I heard the water stop. I had 10, maybe 15 minutes. I moved next to the bedroom. Opened her closet. Pulled out the new dresses. The ones she claimed were for networking events and confidence building. I folded them with precision, stacked them on the bed, and placed a note beside them. Keep these close. You may need them soon. I returned to the office, pulled out a legal pad, and made a list. Bank accounts. Passwords. Utilities. Subscriptions. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I needed to be ready. I needed a plan. When she came downstairs later, towel around her neck, hair damp, she looked at me and smiled. That same practiced, polished smile. You want to watch something tonight? She asked, like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just been photographed committing slow-motion murder on our marriage. Not really, I said. She tilted her head. Everything okay? Just tired. She nodded and went to pour herself a glass of wine. The same one she probably had earlier. I watched her move around the kitchen like a stranger. A well-rehearsed actor in a play I had stopped believing in. I spent the rest of the night in the guest room. She didn't ask why. The next day, I made my first call to a lawyer a friend had recommended during a casual lunch last year. Just in case, he'd said, half joking. Back then, I'd laughed. Told him I'd never need it. Now I wasn't so sure. We set an appointment for Monday morning. I didn't tell Marianne. She thought I was going to the gym. I even took my duffel bag for effect. The lawyer, Stephen, was blunt, efficient, and the opposite of sentimental. I showed him the photo. Told him I had more timestamps, patterns, locations. You're ahead of the game, he said. This'll be straightforward. Just be prepared, she's going to act like you're the one who hurt her. That's how this goes. I nodded. I'd already rehearsed that scene in my mind. Marianne tearful. Accusing me of not being present, of not seeing her, of not being enough. I wasn't interested in playing that role anymore. Over the next few days, I gathered everything. Financial records. Password lists. I created new logins for the joint accounts, froze the credit card she rarely used, and opened a separate checking account in my name only. I didn't touch hers. I wasn't out for revenge. Just safety. By Thursday, I had everything ready. I waited until she left for yoga. I knew from the photo timestamps that yoga was code for something else. Probably him. Maybe both of them tangled in some hotel bed while I loaded her espresso machine into a box marked kitchen, hers. I took photos of the house just in case. The contents of the closets, the drawer arrangements. I labeled everything meticulously. I didn't want there to be confusion. By the time she returned home that evening, the guest room was ready for her. Clothes folded. Essentials arranged. A small note taped to the door. For your comfort. She walked in the front door and stopped cold. Her eyes moved from the living room to the stairs, registering the absence of her books, the neatly stacked boxes. The quiet. Carter, she called out. I stepped into view calm. Measured. Hey. Her brow furrowed. What is all this? I figured you'd want your things in one place. What are you talking about? She looked at the guest room door, the note. Then back at me. I don't understand, what is this? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I just looked her in the eye and said, I know. She stood frozen. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. I saw the photo, I said. From August Lane. I saw the man. I saw you. A long silence. When she finally spoke, it was a whisper. Carter. I'm not looking for an explanation. Not now. Her face was pale. She looked down at her hands, then at the guest room door. I just need some space, I said. To think. To breathe. She stepped forward. Please. Let me explain. Not tonight. I turned, walked past her, and into the bedroom that used to be ours. Behind me, the house fell into silence. The weekend passed like a slow-motion montage of normalcy wrapped in silent warfare. Marian stayed mostly in the guest room, her footsteps muffled and careful, like she was afraid to break the fragile balance holding us apart. I, on the other hand, became mechanical. Deliberate. I brewed my coffee like clockwork. Folded laundry with precision. Made the bed with tighter corners than any hotel maid ever could. Everything I did was with intent. Controlled. Measured. Because that was the only way to keep from collapsing. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I didn't ask her questions I already knew the answers to. I wasn't interested in confessions or apologies wrapped in trembling voices. That ship had sailed. I wasn't trying to repair anything. I was preparing for departure. On Sunday morning, I changed all the passwords to our shared accounts, streaming services, banking, cloud storage, even the Nest thermostat. I moved my direct deposit to the new checking account I'd opened and canceled the joint credit card we rarely used. Not to punish her. Just to prevent confusion. Or worse, entanglement. Around noon, I called the moving company and scheduled a partial pickup for the following Friday. I labeled boxes with her name in discreet Sharpie, bedroom, M, bathroom, M, books, M. I placed her framed photos in bubble wrap, even the ones of us together. Especially those. I didn't break anything. I wasn't bitter. By Monday, the lawyer had emailed over a draft of the separation agreement. It was clinical, efficient. Clear terms. Clean lines. No fight. No tricks. I had listed the assets I wanted to retain, my car, my workshop tools, the house if she didn't contest it. I made a note to include 3 months of transitional support, not because I had to, but because it felt right. Fair. We weren't enemies. We were simply done. That night, Marianne knocked on the door to the bedroom that was once ours. I opened it but didn't invite her in. She stood there, arms crossed over her chest as if bracing herself. Can we talk? I nodded. Sure. I don't know what to say. I wasn't expecting any of this. I waited. The silence between us was thick, not angry, but full of something heavier, resignation. She gestured toward the hallway. I didn't think you'd be this calm. What would you have expected? She looked away. I don't know. Screaming. Slamming doors. Rage. I'm not interested in drama. Her eyes searched mine. So what now? I sent you an email earlier, I said. It's the draft of our separation agreement. Take your time reviewing it. You're free to have someone look it over. Her mouth parted, and for a moment I saw the weight of it all land in her posture. The realization that this wasn't a bluff. That I wasn't hoping for reconciliation or waiting for her to beg. Carter. I made a mistake. I nodded. I know. It wasn't serious. I know that too. She looked confused. If it had been serious, I said slowly, you might have told me. Left me. But it wasn't. It was worse, it was convenient. It was disposable. That makes it feel even more hollow. She blinked, and for a second I thought she might cry. But she didn't. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did. A long pause. I miss who we were, she whispered. So do I. But we can't go back, can we? No, I said. We can't. She nodded. I saw something shift behind her eyes then. A quiet acceptance. She turned and walked back to the guest room without another word. The next morning I left for work early. I needed space. Real space. Outside the house. I turned off my phone during lunch. When I checked it later, there were no messages from her. Only a delivery update from the lawyer's office, paperwork scheduled for notarization by Friday. That evening I returned to find the living room cleaned. The kitchen scrubbed. A casserole warming in the oven, her famous spinach and mushroom bake. My favorite. A playlist was softly humming in the background. It used to be our Sunday cleaning mix. Fleetwood Mac. Norah Jones. The kind of nostalgic noise that made you think things were okay even when they weren't. I didn't say anything. I served myself dinner. Ate in silence. When I stood to clear the plate, she stepped out from the hallway. You're still part of this house, you know, she said quietly. I shook my head. Not for long. I'm trying. I know. She looked at the floor. Is there anything I can do? No, I said. Not anymore. That night, I went for a walk. Just around the neighborhood. I passed houses with glowing windows, the faint buzz of TVs and laughter inside. I used to imagine that was us, safe, ordinary. Now it felt like a stage play I'd wandered off of and everyone else had kept acting without me. When I came home, she had gone to bed. The light under the guest room door was off. I walked past it without slowing down. Over the next few days, she tried. I'll give her that. She made breakfast. Played old records. Wore the sweater I once said made her look like autumn in motion. But it all felt staged. Performed. Like she was playing the role of the wife she thought I still wanted. But I didn't want a performance. I wanted the truth. And now that I'd finally seen it, I couldn't unsee it. On Thursday night, I left the final version of the paperwork on the hallway console. I placed a pen beside it. A yellow post-it marked where to sign. No letter. No note. Just the facts. She didn't mention it. But Friday morning, the forms were gone. Signed. She'd left them in a neat stack beside my coffee mug, along with a folded piece of paper. Not a letter. Not an explanation. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. And for the first time since I found that receipt, I believed her. But it didn't change anything. Because clarity wasn't about being sorry. It was about being sure. And I was. After the paperwork was signed, something inside Marianne shifted. Not dramatically, not a tearful breakdown or a midnight confession, but subtly. She started behaving like the woman I remembered from the early years. The version of her who wore oversized sweaters and danced barefoot while waiting for the kettle to boil. The one who'd playfully steal my hoodie and curl into me during movie nights. She made pancakes on Saturday morning, just like she used to. Blueberry extra crisp on the edges. She even used the old ceramic plates we'd picked out at that farmer's market upstate, plates we hadn't used since Christmas. I came downstairs to the smell of butter and cinnamon, and there she was, hair tied back, smiling faintly like we hadn't burned the bridge just days earlier. I thought you might want some, she said gently, flipping another pancake without looking at me. I sat. I ate. But I didn't smile. Someday she found the old board games in the hall closet. Left Monopoly and Scrabble on the coffee table. That night, she turned on the record player and let Sam Cooke float through the living room like a memory we both recognized but couldn't touch. You used to beat me at this, she said, pointing to the Scrabble tiles. But I've been practicing. I glanced at the board. Nodded. Said nothing. When I didn't move to sit, she didn't press. She just started playing on her own. Moved letters around in soft concentration, occasionally scribbling in a little notebook. It would have been endearing once. On Monday, she cooked again. My favorite, her homemade chili. She had chopped everything fresh. Used the old recipe card, even wiped the kitchen counter with the lemon-scented spray I always kept under the sink. The house smelled like autumn and nostalgia. She called me to the table. I thanked her. But I didn't eat much. Because the truth was, none of it mattered. It didn't taste like forgiveness. It tasted like a trap. She started wearing that green cardigan again, the one I used to say made her eyes look like moss in sunlight. She wore the earrings I'd bought for our anniversary even though she never really liked them. She lit candles in the bedroom, not to seduce, but to soften the silence between us. I could tell she was trying to create something familiar, something safe. But the warmth she was manufacturing felt artificial, like she was staging a memory she no longer believed in. She even played our playlist one night. The one we built on that road trip to Asheville. James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, Van Morrison. The songs we used to hum along to in the car with the windows down and no destination in mind. Do you remember this one? She asked, her voice soft, like she was dipping a toe into a lake she once swam in. I remember all of it, I said. And I did. That's what made it worse. It wasn't that I'd forgotten who we were. It was that I could see so clearly how far we'd drifted from it and how these gestures, however well-intentioned, weren't bridges back. She stopped sleeping in the guest room after the fourth night. I never told her to move back into our bed. She just did. Quietly. Slipped under the covers while I pretended to be asleep. I felt the dip in the mattress, the exhale she held in her lungs like she was waiting for rejection. I didn't roll away. But I didn't reach for her either. In the mornings, she'd still make coffee for two. Still set out both mugs, even though I had started skipping mine and grabbing one on the way to work. She stopped commenting on it after day 3. Just quietly poured both, then poured mine down the sink when I didn't show. She started asking small questions. Do you want to go for a walk? Should I pick up anything from the store? Do you still like those cashews you used to snack on? I gave short answers. One-word replies. Not out of cruelty, but because I didn't know how to let her feel better without lying. One evening, she left a sticky note on my pillow. In her handwriting. Rounded letters, a little slanted, exactly how she used to sign cards and write grocery lists. It said, I know I messed up. I miss us. I'm still here if you ever want to talk. I didn't respond. I placed the note in the drawer with the others. Because yes, this was familiar. Every bit of it. The sudden attentiveness. The careful affection. The way she played nostalgia like it was a song only we knew. But it wasn't enough. Because I wasn't who I used to be. And maybe that was the part she didn't understand yet. I wasn't just hurt. I was changed. I didn't trust the warmth she offered. Not because I thought it was fake, but because I thought it was strategic. Because I'd seen her offer that same warmth to someone else in a dimly lit wine bar, her hand resting on a stranger's thigh while the real me sat at home watching reruns of a show we used to love. She had learned, somewhere along the way, how to mimic an asterisk Macy without investing in it. And now I could see the mechanics of it too clearly. The placement of the hand, the softness in the eyes, the quiet way she'd lean in just enough. It all felt less like love and more like choreography. And the worst part? It might have worked once. Before the receipt. Before the photo. Before I had to confront the version of her that existed outside our story. But now? It landed like a dull thud. Even when she cried. Yes, eventually the tears came. Late one night, when the effort wore her thin and the silence between us proved thicker than any casserole or cardigan could fill. She sat beside me on the couch, the TV flickering something neither of us were watching, and said, I don't know how to fix this. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring down at her hands, twisting the gold band on her finger. I thought if I could just remind us of what we were, maybe. She didn't finish. I turned the TV off. You can't fix it with memories, I said. You can't undo what you did by dressing it in what we used to be. Her lip quivered. But I meant it. All of this. I'm not faking it. I know, I said. And that's the hardest part. She wiped her eyes. Then what do I do? I didn't answer. Because there wasn't anything left for her to do. She had already played her part. Delivered her monologue. Stepped onto the stage with the lights low and the audience gone. And me? I was already halfway out the theater. It happened one evening, quiet, unremarkable. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands cradling a cup of chamomile tea she hadn't touched. I was reading over work emails on my tablet, but I wasn't really focused. The air between us was full of unsaid things, and it had been that way for weeks. I was thinking we could talk, she said, her voice soft. I looked up. About what? Her eyes searched mine. Us. Where this is going. I closed the tablet. Not out of courtesy, out of finality. Instead of words, I slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were the finalized separation documents, a checklist of logistics, and a small list of remaining shared items needing resolution. I don't think there's anything left to talk about, I said. She didn't touch the folder at first, just stared at it like it might burn her fingers. I thought we were getting better, she said. No, I replied. You were getting performative. I was getting quiet. I still love you. I didn't flinch. Then why did you stop choosing me? She blinked, tears threatening again. But I wasn't moved. Not anymore. Her words no longer pierced. Her sorrow didn't feel shared, it felt rehearsed. We can fix this, she whispered. I shook my head. I've already fixed what I can. Now I'm just cleaning up. She thought time would dull the edges, that if she stayed, kept cooking meals and wearing old favorites, I'd eventually fold. That I'd wake up one day and forget the wine bar, the photo, the ache of betrayal. That I'd fall for the version of her that was trying so hard to act like the woman I once loved. But I didn't. That night, while she slept in our now her bedroom, I packed a bag. Nothing dramatic. Just the essentials. Some clothes, my documents, a few keepsakes. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Not a letter. Just a sentence. I've said all I needed to say. I didn't leave my location. I didn't block her. I simply disappeared from the space we once shared. By morning, I was already gone. I'd rented a small apartment on the other side of the city. It wasn't glamorous, but it was clean. Quiet. Mine. The silence there didn't ache, it calmed me. She called a few times. Then she stopped. I imagined she stood in the empty kitchen, read the note a dozen times, and realized there was no door to knock on anymore. No final fight. No begging scene. Just absence. She had expected tears, maybe a last-ditch speech. Some version of me broken and torn, still clinging to what we had. Instead, I left like a breeze through an open window. Unannounced. Unapologetic. It was over. And that was the point.